Not quite sure whether I need these or not. From Luke's Gospel, chapter 9, come these words. Jesus is on the move, and he encounters some folks as he is making his way along, heading toward Jerusalem. When the days drew near for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On their way, they entered a village of the Samaritans to make ready for him, but they did not receive him, because his face was set towards Jerusalem. When his disciples James and John saw this, they said, "Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" But he turned and he rebuked them. And they went on to another village. As they were going along the road, someone said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus said to him, "Foxes have holes, birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." To another he said, "Follow me." But this one said, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." And Jesus said to him, "Let the dead bury their own dead, but as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God." And another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home." Jesus said to him, "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of heaven." So ends the reading of God's holy word. Invite us to pray. Gracious God, we hear these words, Jesus, and some admittedly fairly well-meaning people that he encounters along the way. People that are evidently interested in him. And yet he insists on kind of a single-minded focus and the highest priority for all who desire to follow. Help us, because we know we don't always have that priority in our minds. We can't always keep you first and foremost. So in those moments, be gentle and continue to invite and to call so that we too might follow and join. Amen. Down near where I live, South Bristol, Naples area, there's an intersection known as the Parting of the Ways. When you're driving up Route 21 from Naples, you reach a point in Bristol Springs when you have to make a decision. You veer right to continue up Route 21. You veer left, basically, to head up Route 64. One road takes you to Bristol. The other takes you to Canandaigua. One road carries you into the realm of Burning Springs and Baptist Hill. The other road takes you into the realm of Burger King and Walmart. A split-second decision in Bristol Springs makes all the difference. Such pivot points do come our way. Moments when we make a simple, single choice that will reverberate, perhaps quite a ways into the future. Perhaps it's signing your name in the recruitment office, or signing your name in the bank, or standing up in front in the church and saying, "I do." A moment in time when we set into motion events that are far-reaching and often very self-defining. Jesus was at such a pivot point, a parting of the ways when his sights were set on Jerusalem. Jerusalem was, of course, the great religious and political center of the world, and a really great place for a prophet to get into trouble. Especially a prophet with a message that threatened to upend just about every aspect of living from religion to finance to law. He was parting from a whole lot of ways. When the Samaritan city refused to receive his message, the disciples suggested that a good dose of napalm would teach him a lesson. But the master would hear nothing of it. No vengeance, no retribution, not in my name. He had a destination, a vision, a goal. It didn't involve incinerating little villages. Goals are funny things. In soccer, the goal is a giant, big, wide net that sooner or later, usually, especially in the World Cup, I guess, somebody kicks a ball into. In basketball, it's a little hoop. The balls go in so many times, you need a calculator to figure out how many went in. But some goals are never attained, and yet they're priceless because they guide our best efforts, even if we never get there. Throughout a whole lot of years of heartache and hardship, Moses led his people toward the promised land. But when all was said and done, Moses stopped just short. Never made it over the border. Martin Luther King had a dream, a goal, of a time when children were not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, quote unquote. His journey too was cut short, but the dream continues to guide and sometimes goad us toward more just living, more loving life. What seems to matter most is not necessarily getting there, but heading there. It's what we set our faces toward that seems to matter. The parting of the waves down in South Bristol is something of a point of reckoning, hopefully not wrecking, for many unwary motorists. But in all honesty, there are many chances for redemption if you happen to make the wrong choice. Most notably, Bristol Road, Routes 5 and 20, not to mention Dugway for the stout of heart. Thoroughfares that allow you to make amends for a wrong choice back at the parting of the ways. Our journeys in life, no matter how determined and clear-minded we may be at any given moment, can sometimes be a little bit serpentine, with a lot of switchbacks and corrections. Albert Einstein couldn't speak very well until he was 9 years old and was expelled from school at one point. Abraham Lincoln had a nervous breakdown and was a flop in business. And as for J.K. Rowling, author of the Harry Potter books, I'll let her speak for herself. I had failed on an epic scale. An exceptionally short-lived marriage had imploded, and I was jobless, a lone parent, and as poor as it's possible to be in modern Britain without being homeless. The fears that my parents had had for me and that I'd had for myself had both come to pass, and by every usual standard, I was the biggest failure I knew. And yet in all three cases, all three of these individuals, they persisted in ways that brought gifts of artistry and wisdom and justice to the world. Something sustained them even through moments of great despair. Evidently, it's not about living a life of undeviating goodness and righteousness. Who does that? Even a bullet from a rifle doesn't follow a completely straight trajectory. It sags. It's cruel to expect that any one of us would do any better. So a life of faith isn't about perfection. It's about persistence and priorities. Those who promised to follow Jesus kept putting conditions on their faith. Well, let me do this first, or that, or the other thing. The claim of Christ upon our hearts will not settle for second fiddle. Mother Teresa, I think, summed up the tension in this beautifully. She said, God does not require me to be successful, only to be faithful. What does seem ever so important is to have some sort of consistent goal in sight, even if we never reach it. Goals that lead us deeper into life and love. But goals that have certain attributes. They need to be visible, they need to be steady, and they need to be compelling. Like a lighthouse along a rocky shore that keeps ships safe and on course. I find it fascinating sometimes to learn what it is that drives people to do the good things they do. I'm always kind of curious about motivation. And sometimes their determination comes from experiences of great pain. I want to share one example. James Harrison, age 78, has a place in the Guinness Book of Records for having donated more blood than anyone else on earth. And living to tell about it. Over 1,100 times in the course of 60 years. Why? What led him to these extraordinary acts of giving? Well, here's part of the story. At age 14, Harrison had a medical emergency which required having one lung removed, over 100 stitches, and receiving 13 units of blood in the course of a 3-month stay in the hospital. Age 14. Harrison later said, "I was always looking forward to the opportunity to donate right from the operation on, because I don't know how many people it took to save my life." Well, I can't imagine how many grilled cheese sandwiches he ate, how many bags of Oreos he's been given over the years, but he's earned every one of them. Donating blood may not be your goal, but I believe that each one of us encounters something along the way that's so bright and so good and so irresistible that we just simply must pursue it and do it. And I believe these are invitations from Christ that are somehow woven right into our passions and our strengths and our hungers. And it seems like the story spurs us on to pay attention to those invitations, to notice ways that God is directing our gaze, lifting our eyes, and igniting our spirits. They may not result in our name being written on a building, but they are, I believe, God's signature upon our hearts. And every so often these invitations and these acts become part of a more public story, as in the case of Rosa Parks back in 1955, sitting on a bus, wanting to stay seated. She wrote, "I have learned over the years that when one's mind is made up, this diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with fear. When I sat down on the bus the day I was arrested, I was thinking about going home. I'd made up my mind quickly about what it was I had to do. I did not feel any fear at sitting in the seat I was sitting in. All I felt was tired. Tired of being pushed around. Tired of seeing bad treatment and disrespect of children, women, men, just because of the color of their skin. Tired of Jim Crow laws. Tired of being oppressed. I was just plain tired. I felt the Lord would give me the strength to endure whatever I had to face." End of quote. And it's hard to predict how our choice to respond to God will bring greater freedom or justice or love to others, maybe others even years down the road. We only know that if we keep our eyes on that bright light of Christ, it will.